Upgrades. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another JVS movie review brought to you from the Toronto Film Festival. This film here is one of the big award contenders coming up in the season, and it's already on everybody's mind for Colman Domingo for Best Actor. And this is Rustin. And here's a quick synopsis. It is based on the true story of gay civil rights activist Bayard Rustin, who helped Martin Luther King Jr. and others organize the 1963 March on Washington. And this stars, this is directed first by George C. Wolfe. It stars Colman Domingo, Chris Rock, Glynn Turman, Emil Amin, C.C. Pounder, and Jeffrey Wright. This film here, going into this festival, was the big film to see. Like, Colman Domingo has been on the minds of people for about to say the last month or so about his performance here in Rustin and it being an automatic awards contender. And it doesn't disappoint there. This performance that he gives in Rustin is amazing. From the moment the film opens up, which it opens up with a very passionate Bayard Rustin as he's just giving a speech about civil rights, giving a speech about formulating power of Black people. From the moment you see Colman on the screen, you're automatically transported to him as Rustin. It works magically, immediately, and beautifully set up also by Mr. George C. Wolfe, the director of this film. He really sets this up amazingly well. From the moment we get on screen, we're transported back to this time period, and we're transported into the life of a man who just seems to be so magnetic every time he speaks. It's the demeanor, the delivery of the way Rustin does everything that you immediately forget that Colman is playing him and you're automatically transported to Rustin. From there, as we go through everything he went through civil rights movements, we see, unfortunately, the brutal plays of certain people to downplay Mr. Rustin's impact and also to stop him from doing a lot of the things that in his mind would have furthered Black people, but also would have caused a big rift amongst everyone. The beginning elements of this film is him attempting to set up a protest at the Democratic National Convention. And we see, again, just how passionate he is. And even the way they portray Martin Luther King here as being Rustin's, one of his best friends here, and him overly accepting him no matter what anybody else thought until Jeffrey Wright, who plays Mr. Powell. Mr. Powell's also played by John Carlos Stanton in Godfather of Harlem. So we kind of know enough about Powell recently in memory for people to know just how conniving he was. And here he decides to put out a rumor that helps destroy any chances of them protesting. But it also helps fracture the relationship between Martin and Rustin. That whole element of what happens when that relationship is fractured. And we see Byron spinning a little out of control, but we also always see him being amazingly passionate about the movement and about setting up everything, down to him meeting with the young kids and them deciding what's going to be their next step in the movement. All of that is great. That's what you're here for. You're here to learn more about this amazing civil rights activist and how he put together the March on Washington. The best elements of this film is dealing with his personal life and the people that he was with, even down to a closeted relationship that he had with a pastor who attempted to use Rustin to live out his truth. All of those elements are what take this film from just being the normal by the numbers civil rights era type of film, and it takes it to a level that most of those films can't reach because their subject in those films are not remotely close as interesting as Bayard Rustin is. And that's what separates this for Colman Domingo. This performance is spot on. Even the sneaking off to the local gay bar in their area, or just sneaking a kiss behind the buildings of this other closeted individual who he absolutely loved. These are amazing scenes. It's amazing the way they set this up well. Even down to the arguments with the NAACP, one of the heads of NAACP being played by Chris Rock, amazingly well by Chris Rock. We see just the struggle of getting the March on Washington set together, but we also finally get to get the truth behind how that march got put together and get Mr. Rustin his due respect for actually being the architect of that march. Because a lot of people still don't know that. When you hear the March on Washington, all you think about is Martin Luther King, when with this story, it portrays that it was Mr. Rustin with a group of very young, passionate people who no longer wanted to sit on the sidelines of the civil rights movement and who wanted to push forward and set up this huge demonstration. Down to the march that we got wasn't the march that they wanted to do. They wanted to do something even grander in scale, but had to scale it back to make more people comfortable. Just the behind the scene workings of how all this took place is what makes this film good, what makes this film great, is dealing and focusing on the life of Bayard Rustin and everything he had to go through. It's just amazing that this civil rights icon isn't as celebrated as he should be. But not only just because he's a black man, at this point in the 60s, he's a black, openly gay man. Like, that didn't happen back in this time period. So when you get to see someone, even at this point, live his truth, even by the time we get to the third act, and it's a lot of things that become by the numbers, but what always separates it from being completely by the numbers is this character does not exist in any other civil rights film. The character of Bayard Rustin does not exist in any other civil rights film. The subject of this film is so powerful that it can make you forget that at times this feels extremely by the numbers, down to the threats that Mr. Rustin receives. All of it feels like every other civil rights film. But then when you get back to the subject matter of it being Bayard Rustin, when we get back to his affairs and just how passionate it is that he is about living his truth, even attempting to help someone else live their truth, all of that is what makes this film special. All of that is what makes this film important for anyone to see. You want to come in and see a great performance by Colman Domingo. You also get here to see an amazing score. Oh my God. It's all original music. And it ends with an original song by Lenny Kravitz, which is also as powerful as the score is in this film. And Mr. George C. Wolfe, who you feel the passion behind every shot in this film by him. It is amazing here. Like, this could be one of the quintessential civil rights era's film for the next generation, of pinpointing just how important these stories are to young Black people, to see this Black gay man living his truth at a time when no one openly lived their truth in this country. It's amazing. And it's something that I think with the movements of everything we have going on today, with the LGBTQ plus audience and crowd, I think this is the perfect film for them, or any Black, young, male, female, queer, non-binary person who feels unseen, to see a film like this, to see someone who, in a time period where you were afraid to even be Black, that he was also very open about who he was. Hopefully that will help more people, even in today's period, be more open with who they are. It's that powerful of the film. So Rustin, brought to you from the Toronto Film Festival and Netflix. Out of a possible 10, I'm giving Rustin a 9.5 out of 10. This is a really solid film, an even better civil rights story that everyone needs to see. Because again, for these figures to be forgotten by history, even in the film, the way they play up that he had to give up certain roles in the movement because of his sexuality and how it could be used against the movement, and him understanding, I would prefer to step aside so I don't hurt the movement, or take a lesser position, I should say, so I don't hurt the movement. But also at key points of this film with him, like, I'm never going to deny who I am. You know, I don't flaunt my relationships, but you see what you see, and you can clearly see what and who I am. And I'm not hiding that from anyone. It is some very powerful work, very powerful scenes by Mr. Colman Domingo in a role that it feels like he was born to play this role. It is amazing how powerful this role is. And at this point, I don't see, as much as I love a lot of other performances of this festival, I don't see another actor lead male actor being able to match his performance in Rustin, including himself, because he has another great film at this festival also. But it's just so much about this performance as Rustin that I think it's gonna stand out and stay with people long after this film is over. This has been another JVS movie review brought to you from the Toronto Film Festival. Peace, people.